just,
It's my whole life even.
But I don't mean to change the agenda for me. All I'm saying
Well,
is
this part of the agenda is, we left that part of the agenda open so that you direct it the way you feel best for all the people here. So that was well intended to leave it open.
Can I read an issue here?
May I just listen to Sister Ayesha? She was going to say something and then we'll move to it.
I wanted to comment on something Sister Jean brought up, which I think is an important point. She said for the women that we have to be not only pro-women but anti-racist, anti-colonialist, etc. And I believe this is a major point that we can all come together. And what the gentleman was saying earlier about many Muslim women in positions of authority or whatever in the Middle East do not cover and don't wear the full Islamic dress, I think a lot of this is related to colonialism and to the idea of the equation that Islam is backward, has restricted the progress and technological status of the Middle East. It has taken the blame for that, as many traditional faiths do when it comes to progress and technology. So therefore, there has been an idea, that to throw off all of the Islamic dress is to be, quote, more progressive. Eventually, for many women, inshallah, this changes. It took me years to cover my head. I did not do it. It was uncomfortable. I couldn't get a job, had all kinds of problems. So we have this issue here with women, the struggle overall. I don't care if you're a Hindu, a Buddhist, or whatever. The struggle is against a colonialist system, a patriarchal or paternal system. Neither one of being on a pedestal is no great shakes either. As one feminist once said, a pedestal is a very tiny place, and it's a very hard fall when you fall off of the pedestal. So to be, raised to a position of honor in a very restricted atmosphere is no great thing either. And I think this is something we all have in common. And abuse of women is something that is rising even within the Muslim community, at least within North America. I have heard it addressed, even by Imam Shaker in khutbahs on a Friday, the issue of, child abuse, rigid discipline, this type of thing. These are issues that are coming up as the society is more strained and trying to, to handle itself in adaptation to this society. So we have very common problems here. And these are issues that all of us have to address, because especially for the Muslim, when we go out or we need assistance or we need counseling, aid, many cases we do not have the Muslim already available, the professional, psychologist, counselor, or whatever that we need. So our ummah, our community, is in a very serious need now to strive, to arrange for these things. And we have to work with our Christian counterparts and Jewish counterparts within this country, see how they did it, and be able to provide for ourselves in the same way and to get the aid that we need. These are very major issues, and we cannot do them separately.
You want to make a comment to what she said?
No, I basically agree, and I guess one of the things I hope would come out of this is not only what I think is happening, or at least speaking for myself, some better understandings of, in some ways, both Christianity and especially for me, especially Islam. But I would like to see that as a road to how do we confront some issues we share. I mean, and particularly since here we're talking about the treatment of women, how do we confront issues we share around the just treatment of women? And how can we combine resources? See, I think we have some common resources. My guess is, or my insight is, listening to this, that we have some different resources, but that could strengthen the fight.
I will have to move to Dr. Moses' little testimony here.
I think one area that will help considerably if there is a little bit of understanding in Western societies to what Islam teaches and little bit better education, because to be honest with you, in most of my meetings in the last 25 years, all what I hear all the time is always negative aspect about the cultural aspect of the Arabs or the cultural aspect of the Muslims. And I think Dr. Badawi brought a very important point. For example, by pointing to the cultural aspect of some Arabian countries, lack of permission for women to drive or to get jobs and things like that. So I think a good starting point would be for us to educate ourselves a little bit better about the history and the culture of the others. While the Muslims can point to the verses in the Quran, for example, that deals with the equality of the woman, that deals with the special status given to the woman, to the hadith, that puts the woman in a special place, the heavens are under the feet of the mother. When Muslims study the scriptures in Christianity, they don't see the same things that the Christians in Western societies try to promote today. For example, everybody tries to give you always the impression that women in this country have the right to vote forever, from day one. Or women was treated equally to the men. Up till now, they don't have any form of equality and they have to struggle. When you even look at the scriptures, you will find that the position of the woman is cast in an extremely negative aspect. So Muslims will look at things like that and say, that is a very clever way to turn the table on the Muslims instead of learning also about Islam and learning from others.
Thank you, Dr. Hussein. I think we are coming to the end of this part, and we'll have to move to the audience over here. Okay, very good. Sure.
You know how brief I am. I just want to add 3 practical suggestions on the question of abuse. Number 1, I think many reports seem to indicate that abuse of women and children, for that matter, seem to be very much connected with drinking. And women here does not only mean wife, but even girlfriend. So I think if Muslims and Christians also both work towards that ideal about, reduction of booze. Of course, I'm not saying that Christians should agree with Muslims fully of total dryness, but at least...
You're pointing to an issue.
Exactly, it is an issue. Secondly, I believe the way a person treats others depends on their religious motives. So by proper understanding of either Islam and Christianity, you avoid that because you give a proper motive. And I say proper understanding because some people could make distorted interpretation of text that does not mean at all what they want, and they take it out of context. So that has to be properly understood. Both sides, not sides, I don't like to this telephone, but Muslims and Christians alike should try to teach this. Thirdly, I think part of the family violence also may result from the lack of proper family counseling, especially for immigrants who do not have an extended family like they used to have at home. And I believe a great need is there to provide family counseling and help in resolving this problem before it gets too serious.
Thank you. Go ahead. Somebody.
We've been talking a lot about misunderstandings about Islam. I sincerely believe that it doesn't have a whole lot to do with the misunderstanding of the religious principles. I have to say that I think it's economic. The United States government is interested in the oil in the Middle East. There's nothing subtle about the United States government, and therefore it identifies Arabs as Muslims, and therefore you are the bottom of the totem pole. And, there's the collusion of the media and all of these kind of popular things. There is the whole Middle East business, the Palestinian and the Israeli struggle. I do not believe that the Arabs have supported the Palestinians probably in the way they should have, but nevertheless, there is a strong Israeli lobby in this country, so that's another thing. You're identified with the bad guys. And everything I heard you talk about this morning, terrorism, et cetera, that's all a creation of the United States government to take over the resources of the Middle East. So I think, whereas I think this has been wonderful for me and I've learned a lot, and I would like to continue this. I think in terms of actually addressing the problem is not religious. There have, to my knowledge, the Muslims and the Jews and the Christians have never fought over religion. It has always been territory or some kind of economic hoo-ha behind it, and we use the banner of religion, and people like, presidents of countries talk about